Welcome along to another edition of Matchbook's Weekend Football Podcast. Adrian Clarke and Mark O'Haire are already here, but Miguel Delaney is slightly late because it's transfer deadline day. And, we just picked today to record for Miguel just to help him out with that. So he's not that busy, so it's all good. He'll be along quite shortly. Mixed bag last weekend, but I just want to kind of get a takeaway. It's been a busy few days, gentlemen. Obviously, midweek fixtures. And Mark, we started off the week with poor Scott Parker getting the bullet. No, he obviously didn't get much help during the summer in terms of incoming signings. Currently, Bournemouth at 1.37 to be relegated. What did you make of that? Give me your take on it.
Yeah, there was a lot of people who, I guess, understandably a little bit narked by the decision to remove him, but it wasn't a results-based sacking. It was more based on his comments and indirect criticisms of the board and his lack of backing. So, but I actually believe it's a good move by Bournemouth and their hierarchy. I don't think he's very good as a football manager, and I think they can and should do better. I appreciate that's probably I might be out on my own on that opinion, but I've held it for quite some time. I believe they can and should be doing a lot better. I doubt there's been a huge amount of succession planning at Bournemouth, and that might be their downfall, particularly as the transfer window is upon us. And their business has been pretty poor, if non-existent so far. So it's a really tough gig to take. But in terms of Parker, I do think he's overrated. I think he gets a bit of an easier ride because of his dress sense and the way he deals with the media. He's a very polished character. He's got 2 promotions on his CV, and anyone will say, yeah, he's done his duty, he's done his job there. But if you look at the 2 promotions, I thought both of his teams seriously underwhelmed. And if they weren't promoted, it would have been a massive underachievement. So just because he's been promoted doesn't mean the process to get there was actually impressive. It was far from it, really. I thought his teams played well below their potential. He had a lot of quality at his disposal in both jobs at Fulham and Bournemouth. And I just think the glass ceiling was higher than what Parker's efforts were showing. So obviously it now depends on Bournemouth's replacement. Can they bring in the right character, the right person with the vision to do things long term? And I just think they probably, if they get the appointment right, they can probably get someone with a steeper progress path than what Parker was achieving. So, it might surprise a few people, but I would have sacked Parker in the summer, in fairness, and probably gone and got someone else.
But man, you see, the housewife's favourite thing didn't work on Mark O'Haire. To another housewife favourite, Adrian Clarke. Look, Bournemouth came up, Fulham came up. Obviously, Fulham did it in far more style in the Championship. They've been so good, though, haven't they? I mean, this is a serious effort so far. No, obviously we're going to see a tail off at some stage, but Mitrovic, he's been great as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's brutal from Mark. I mean, I think you were too kind about his dress sense, in fairness. That'd be my one major criticism of that. I think he's a better manager than he is sartorially. But there you go. Fulham have got a better coach, haven't they? I think Marco Silva is a level above Scott Parker, and we're seeing that with the football that they're playing. Obviously, I saw them in the flesh at Emirates Stadium at the weekend. They were so relentless in their pressing, their aggression. They really took the fight to Arsenal, and Arsenal had to dig pretty deep to get the win. And then, of course, that was an exhausted afternoon for them, I think. Yeah, there they go again. They play Brighton, one of the form teams of the division, and they beat them. And Mitrovic scores again. I mean, he's lean at the moment. He's running much harder, much faster, much further. And every time the ball comes in the box, he looks like he's going to score. So, I think we've got to give Fulham more respect maybe in the market and in regards to tips. I even was looking at Fulham at Spurs this weekend on a big handicap, because you can get them on a decent handicap at Tottenham Hotspur. I didn't go with that in the end, but it was one under consideration because, I think they've been seriously impressive for a newly promoted team.
Yeah, Mitrovic, second top goal scorer. But I'm going to give you your props here, right? Because barring injury, your Haaland bet a 3.9 top goal scorer. That's in the bag. Unless he gets injured, he's 1.390.
Is it really?
Yeah. So,
It was one of those at the time. You just think with the number of chances City create that he was.
Yeah, but we were banking on him to take a while to settle into the system or whatever. So this is kind of pretty ominous work.
Yeah, well, good players or great players can adapt, can't they? And I think he's proven that he can.
Miguel Delaney,
sorry.
Go for it.
No, so someone said to me last night when I tweeted it that he was the first player to score 9 goals in his first 5 Premier League games. That it's what the Premier League would have looked like had Shearer gone to Man United in '96, which is probably just basically a scoring machine in a team that creates loads of chances. I remember Ian Wright once saying to me basically that Fergie tried to sign him a few times, and not that it was one of his regrets, but he used to always imagine the amount of goals he'd get in that Man United team, just because the amount of times the ball used to kind of just fly into the box. With City, it's different, but it's just, I suppose, it was even brought up before he went. He scores so many of those classic Guardiola goals where the ball is cut back and there's someone, ready to just side foot it in. And as well, Haaland, for all the fixation on his size, it's actually his movement that's probably the most distinctive part of his game.
Mig, 2 weeks in a row, mate, you had your best bet up by, well, there's 31 minutes, man. This is too easy now. City to win and check notes over 8.5 goals. Sorry, it was only over 3. Liverpool to win and over 3.5 goals was the bet. That was pretty nice. You got it odds against as well. That's the easiest winner you're ever going to have, man.
Yeah, I know. I was surprised by the speed of it. I was in a classic case the weekend where I was at the Southampton game, Southampton United, and it was obviously in the build up to these games, you pick what you think is sort of the biggest storyline. And United, of course, they were still making all the news midweek even after the Liverpool win, and there was still that sensation: is that a real result yet, or will United kind of drop points again to plunge them back into crisis? And then it was one of those classic cases. Went to the game, they won. A bit of a storyline, not much to it. Then you're realizing the real story is somewhere else. There's nothing worse as a kind of a football journalist in that way. And one of the biggest, of course, being, well, it was initially City going 2-0 behind to Palace. Then it was Liverpool just raining goals. And then, of course, it was Haaland before Liverpool kind of took over again. We thought they might get 10.
A quick one for you, Mick. You didn't get involved in this PSG Bayern double last weekend, did you?
Luckily, I did.
I had to put you on a miss. Sorry.
I know. I haven't had one go well. I mean, I would still argue both situations were basically based. The Bayern draw was based on Jan Sommer putting in maybe the greatest performance by any goalkeeper ever. What was it? 19 shots on goal.
20 shots on goal, 19 saves. Things one was cleared.
That was it. Sorry, yeah. And PSG and even Monaco basically did something different against PSG to be fair, and pushed things to the maximum, both tactically and I think in terms of effort. So I would say they're very much outliers.
You're getting a better price this weekend. They're both away, and Werner away at Union, who obviously are started the Bundesliga very well. All right, look, we've chatted about midweek. We've chatted about the weekend gone as well. Just before we get into 4 Premier League games we're going to cover, we're going to start with Manchester United and Arsenal, obviously marquee game on Sunday. If you have not got a Matchbook account and you do want to get involved today, you can check out insights.matchbook.com to avail of this offer, which is a £30 welcome offer. Use the bonus code INSIGHTS30. That's 30 if you're listening on the podcast. That's INSIGHTS30. That's £30 welcome offer. Money back as a free bet if your first bet loses. Check out the odds checker grid any day of the week, and invariably Matchbook will be best price on the vast majority of selections. All right, Manchester United, Arsenal. This is where we see if this is all real with Arsenal, Adrian Clarke. I'll start with you here first, and let's take a look at the betting. Favourites, AC. They weren't during the week, but following a pretty good performance against Villa, which probably should have won by more, they're 2.68. United are 2.8, 3.6 to draw. The main handicap is draw no bet here. There's a bit of margin in this because we're recording this on Thursday, so we don't know how Manchester United have got on at the King Power. So we're just going to have to leave up that to the lap of the gods. And the margin is kind of reflecting that at the moment. 2.5 is the total and shaded towards the over. AC, you think the Gunners can go up here and get a result at Old Trafford? It's not going to phase them, you believe?
I don't think so, no. I mean, it's not been a particularly happy hunting ground, but in the same breath, they often go to Old Trafford and score. I think they've scored on their last 8 visits. And the way that they're playing, I think they'll go there looking to score more goals and put Manchester United under pressure. I think it's a case of can they keep things tight at the other end, really. They're playing with such confidence at the moment. Yeah, I mean, it should have been 4 or 5-1 against Villa. Against Fulham, a very good Fulham team. There was a spell in the second half where they could have had 4 or 5 goals. So, yeah, very, very sort of creative and hungry at the moment. And it's still hard to make head and tail of Manchester United, isn't it? I worked on the United Southampton game as well, and there were signs of a team developing, but at the same time they were sort of clinging on at times as well. So So yeah, still difficult to get a strong steer on them. They still look vulnerable to me. I think that back four is new, and Arsenal can certainly get at them. And I would back Arsenal to score at least once in the game, possibly twice, and that would make it hard for them to be beaten, in my opinion. So yeah, because of Manchester United, I mean, Rashford barely got a kick at the weekend. Yeah, as an attacking force, they scored a wonderful goal, but it wasn't a lot else. They got 1 day's less rest, of course. They're playing Leicester tonight, so we don't know how they're going to come out of that either. So that is an advantage, I think, for Arsenal. So yeah, my pick here, I was looking at Arsenal to win the game and over 1.5 goals. That was a nice, juicy price. That was over 3. I think it was on 3. I was looking at potential goals as well, but I've settled on Arsenal draw no bet because I think it's entirely plausible that they'll at least avoid defeat in the game. They're certainly playing well enough to go there and yeah, put down a statement victory, really. But it's just this is what I see with my eyes. But in reality, you know that sooner or later the numbers game will catch up with Arsenal, and this winning streak has to end, and there will be a bump in the road. I just hope it's not a Manchester United because yeah, from Arsenal fans are loving it at the moment, and I think they would revel in a win there.
The funny one with that bet too, AC, is that you're probably better off sometimes maybe waiting for this price. If United win at Leicester on Thursday on tonight when we're recording, you're probably getting a slightly better price on.
Yeah, no, Thomas Partey is it a big one? Yeah, I think it's a good shout, by the way. So that's the blow. I think Zinchenko might be back for it. Pretty sure Ødegaard will shake off what I think is a bruised foot. So yeah, they should be okay. There was a slight doubt over Aaron Ramsdale. Hopefully he'll come out of that game okay as well. But yeah, providing Arsenal going with a strong 11, I think they're more than capable of winning and maybe at worst drawing the game.
Miguel Delaney, I think you're fancying under 2.5 goals your selection, or you're thinking that it could be a defensive game and the defenses might be on top. But talk to me briefly about Manchester United's transfer deadline days. We're recording. We can say that paying €100 million for Anthony, that wasn't good business, right? This is just the world we live in right now.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that tweet you put out earlier. We were talking about pre-recording. For people who don't follow you on Twitter, the figures that's spent in the Premier League and La Liga's next is a net spend.
Oh yeah, and that's just net spend. Where the gap is even greater if you go to gross. So the Premier League is spent net as at the moment we're speaking. It'll go up before the day is out. 1.3 billion. The next highest in terms of net spend, and I suppose this is relevant because it's all about the money the Premier League is spending everywhere else, is 55 million. I mean, it's an absurd gap. But even in gross, so what the gap there is 1.2 billion. The gap in gross, the Premier League has spent 2.15 billion this window so far. The next in terms of gross is Italy, which is 780 million, I think. So it's even higher. And again, the Anthony fee is a reflection of that. I mean, that was a remarkable situation because literally on Saturday, I was talking to someone involved in that deal, and they were saying to me that it's very touch and go. Just because Ajax went into the typical Ajax, always planned very well.
Yeah.
And they'd kind of gone into the summer legislating, all right, we'll let 3 to 4 senior players go, and after that we can rebuild. We can use the money to replenish our squad. So they never wanted to sell Anthony, and then suddenly United come in with it's almost as if there was no limit to what they could go to. At least in kind of the context of a Dutch club. So while Ajax didn't want to sell, what it came down to was basically this is too much money to leave on the table, and hence they did the deal. Again, on the United side, I do wonder whether, because they've gone over their budget for this window, well over, because initially when we started, I think it was only supposed to be around 80 million for a midfielder and someone else, and De Jong was the ideal there. I do wonder, had they not signed Anthony for that price, I think they might have been a bit more active today. They were having a little bit of a look around today, maybe as regards a right back, but at the moment it doesn't seem like they're going to do anything. Might return to it in January. I suppose what this does, I mean, the Anthony one's an interest. I mean, he's obviously a huge talent. He's got a record of a goal every 3 games in the Dutch league. That's good at his age. But it's only 2 years of proper experience in Europe. United have a lot of that type of player. He's got to adapt. It just seems such a high price for so much uncertainty. Now, I suppose the other side of that is Erik ten Hag knows him better than any of us.
He knows the potential is there.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what it solves in the United team, but it might make them more cutting edge. But just in relation to this game, I mean, even in this game, I don't think this is going to be defined by United's attacking. I think this is going to be a dogged game. Primarily just because of the fact that, and it's why I've gone in my bet, I've gone low with the goal scoring. Obviously, Ten Hag doesn't have United playing as he wants them. It's not his ideal. But to compensate for that, he actually, to be fair to him, he's got them there's a bit of an edge to them again. They showed it against Liverpool, and they also showed it against Southampton, where they're able to dig in. So I think it'd be similar against an Arsenal team who maybe rarely in the history of this fixture, recent history of this fixture, it'll be Arsenal who probably have the initiative and more of the ball. But then the flip side to that is, I think one of the most improved parts of Arsenal's game is their defense. I know they've conceded a little bit in recent games. I think that was more kind of situational due to the teams they were playing, and maybe almost and Villa's goal was a complete freak. We'll come to that later. But it's one of the areas in the team that's almost he's got as he wants Arteta, and I probably lean towards an Arsenal win, I have to say. But I think this is going to be a tight game with few goals as a consequence of all that.
Yeah, Mark, I think you're in a similar line. I think you're finding it hard to pick a winner here, so your selection has been the draw.
Yeah, I can pick out negatives in both teams. I think it's going to be a useful barometer for Man United to see how far they've progressed. Very convincing against Liverpool, very unconvincing, I felt, against Southampton. This game is taking place just 3 days after that Leicester match too, so there could be a bit leggy. Could be a few rotations going on potentially against Leicester rather than against Arsenal, because this is the bigger game. But that is a slight concern for Arsenal. Adrian's touched on it already, but injury-wise, Thomas Partey is a big miss. The points per game when he is in the team to when he's out is quite significant, actually. I think it's about 0.6 points per game difference. And just there's doubts about Zinchenko, Ramsdale and Ødegaard. So right now, without knowing the full team news before Sunday, I just can't back Arsenal, particularly as favourites away at Old Trafford. Obviously said at the start there, Sully, the market's moved in favour of them, but I know they've made some decent progress, but the schedule has been relatively kind for Arsenal so far, and this is arguably their biggest test so far. So, yeah, I just want to see Arsenal go to Old Trafford and put on a performance, because too often they go into these big games, particularly away from home against the better teams, and either they underwhelm or they just fall short, really. And it's 8 defeats, 4 wins and 2 draws away under Arteta against big 6 teams, or top 6 finishers, I should say. They've had a decent history of winning at Chelsea recently. Did win here in 2020, 21, but lost last year 3-2 when they went into the game with high hopes, really. So improved defensively, of course they have, but I think I was looking towards goals here, kind of flying in the face of what Miguel was saying, but I just think injuries right now is enough to put me off, and just not knowing what we're going to get from United still. I just need a bit more time to sort of work them out and see where they're at. So draw felt like a fair enough. I can see it probably being a 1-1.
Yeah, there's been a lot of drawn games, a lot of drawn games in this fixture. Can I just say, I had it on good authority that Ten Hag has done a classic U-turn tactically. I think we've probably all seen that ourselves, but like in pre-season, basically he was bollocking anyone that made a long pass. Just it was like, no, stop. We're not doing that. We're not playing that way. I'll tell you what, against Southampton, there weren't many short passes. There were a lot of balls from back to front that were boomed. He has done a big tactical shift after.
But you know what? You kind of tip your hat there, don't you? Sometimes, Adrian, sometimes guys can get too stubborn, but that strikes me that he's more of a pragmatist than we probably realised to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, yeah, I agree. And it was the right thing to do against Liverpool, maybe against Southampton because they got the win. But the players will be thinking, hang on, he was so married to that, and now he wants us to do this. There's a little bit of confusion there. So I'm a bit like Mark. I want to sort of wait and see what sort of United side develops.
And that's that's the underlying thing. Like I said, we're recording on Thursday, we're playing Thursday night. So for this one, this isn't going to be a big bet for anyone, I would suggest. But under 2.5 seems to be probably the best play here for me. 2.12. Let's select that one. See a couple of comments there about record keeping. guys, just to re-emphasize, we take a best bets record, and we'll do that after a couple of weeks. But like, if you don't look at the table, there have been some winners, some losers. We're giving selections for these games because some people want to lean, they want to hear the guys' opinions, but the best bet record at the very end of the show is where we're taking our official ROI figure, and it was a very positive one last season. And Miguel Delaney is only adding to it this year, getting winners up by half time, which is great, mate. Good man, you'll be kept. All right, Aston Villa against Man City's next game. We'll start with you, Miguel, for this, but let's take a look at the betting first of all, as we have it at matchbook.com. 9.0, you can back Villa. City at 1.38, the draw available at 5.9. Villa getting a goal and a half start at 1.9, and 3 is the total. Miguel, Man City, we're not backing Villa here, but if you're backing Man City, are you kind of following the kind of carbon footprint that we've been doing the last couple of weeks, or what are you going to do?
I've actually gone for a maybe relatively conservative over 2.5, and on hindsight, I actually maybe should go a bit higher in terms of for City.
Oh.
And while everyone's fixating on Haaland, naturally enough,
yeah.
I think I'm most guided in this game, and my expectation that City will win and win handsomely by Villa. I was at the Arsenal game on Wednesday night. Adrian was there as well, and I have to say I was struck by how bad Villa were. Arsenal should have been 4 or 5 up by half time. They just got a bit complacent in the second half and allowed Villa had. I mean, when I was writing my report on it, I was trying to think of like how to describe what Villa were trying to do, what their intention was in terms of shape, in terms of emphasis, and literally all I could fixate on was they tried to be aggressive and get in Arsenal's faces, which then, and flying completely in the face of that though, it was a very kind of superficial aggression, because how did Arsenal's 2 goals came in? I mean, for the first, Martinelli, Xhaka, and then Gabriel Jesus had so much space for each step of the move. Then for the second goal, it was even worse. So it's almost like it's this aggression, but it's aggression with no focus. And I'd be very worried for Gerrard. Now, at the moment, I suppose that's completely under the betting market. But at the moment, Christian Perslow, because he's so invested in Gerrard, the word last night was he'll obviously get the weekend, and because it's Man City, they'll get the 2 games after that at least. But I do wonder then as well, I mean, say if the pressure was greater and Gerrard was playing for his job, we might see kind of almost a more, if subconsciously, not that they're writing off this game, but that everyone expects City to win, and Villa know that, you know, it's really about the games after that. Their game against Leicester on the 10th of September is absolutely huge. I fear for them, I have to say, and now I'm actually thinking my plus 2.5 is
Hold on at that. I think you're right. It's 1.92 because it's a big jump to 3.5. That's my kind of sense. Not that I'm going to guide you in any way.
Yeah.
But if they win 3-0, you'll be kicking yourself. Is my kind of sense. Again, I don't think really they're, you know, if they're 3-0 up with 80 minutes gone or whatever, they won't give a monkey's.
And on that, they've got Champions League midweek.
They do. Yeah.
He might hook Haaland after 50 minutes after he scored another hat-trick.
That's the other side of it, yeah. And you saw substitute last night wasn't too bad either, was he, Alvarez? Yeah. Adrian, picking up, you were there as well at the Emirates. I loved your bet here, because this is one I was looking at this morning. City to win with a clean sheet is a big price at 2.52.
I mean, the price stands
Where
out.
the Villa goals coming from here, like?
They only got a freak one last night, didn't they, from the corner? I mean, Ramsdale messed it up in terms of the organisation, but it was a definite foul. He's got his arms around Ramsdale. He's stopping him from jumping. That was a weird concession. But yeah, I looked at some of the numbers. Only one team has made fewer big chances than Aston Villa this season. That's Bournemouth. No surprise there. They've made 1. Villa have only made 4. Pathetic, really. Ollie Watkins, the star man up front, he's had 6 shots this season. Didn't get a sniff at Emirates Stadium. At the back, so going forward, not a lot's happening. There's sort of no real plan. Hard to know what they're trying to do. Certainly no penetration. And then you look at the back. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze, I think, in a second. I'm trying to hold it off. At the back, 4 different centre-back partnerships in 5 games. I mean, he's changed the centre-back partnership through illness, through injury, whatnot, in every game so far. So that's not helping things. I just can't see Villa laying a glove on City based on what I've seen this season and what I saw in the flesh the other night or last night. So, yeah, City to win with a clean sheet, and I think it's a really good price.
Yeah, Mark, you're not going to shock us, or you're not going to say Villa or anything. Good man, AC, get it out there, son. Get it out there. Mark, what's your way in terms of bet here with City on side?
The guy's already stolen my thunder by criticising Steven Gerrard already. But yeah, you've got to be pro City, obviously. Gerrard's record at Villa is worse than Gary Neville's in charge of Valencia. He's now had 33 games in charge of Premier League matches, which is well over 3/4 of a full campaign. Villa have won 11 games and they've lost 16. They've averaged 1.15 points. Worse than Dean Smith, far worse than when he was removed. Just struggling to see the progress really over the last 12 months, really, despite significant investment. Over the last 17 games, they've won 3 times, they've lost 10. The wins came against Everton, Burnley and Norwich. They scored twice or more, just 4 times in that, and it's been lifeless, really. And it's not like he doesn't have the tools. And I think that's where, where are the goals going to come from? They should be coming because they have the ability. They have the individual ability in that squad to score goals. But it's just, watch the game against West Ham last week. It was absolutely dreadful, awful game of football. But Villa were just offered nothing at all. It's worse than pulling teeth, really. And defensively, they have been disrupted by injury and illness, but not good enough. So, yeah, this should be a pretty comfortable City win. The market still seems to like Aston Villa in some way, form, or reason. But, City are 1.38 here to win, which is bigger than they normally would be going to a bottom half team. And you look at the handicap, their odds against to win by 2 or more goals, again, bigger than it normally would be. So quite happy to sort of take the difference really and back City -1.25. Just means if they win by exactly 1 goal, you only lose half of your stake. If they win by 2, you get paid out in full. So, difficult to see City not winning this game quite handsomely.
There's 3 different ways in here, but I just wanted, before I come off this, Miguel, if I give you basically 5-4, 2.25 on over 2.5 City goals, just City goals, you'd surely take that as not hope, because your bet actually could technically come up, obviously. With
you're right, yeah. Yeah, I take that, yeah. I agree with Adrian and Mark. I feel like, they just offered nothing. I can't see how they're going to score. Unless it's some freak break from a City error. But yeah, I take that.
All right, it's a good show. But AC, I'm going to go with Joe. This is the first one that jumped off the page to me this morning. City to win with a bit even bigger price. City to win with a clean sheet is 2.52 at matchbook.com. It's over 6-4. I think that's a belting bet. So yeah, even 1-0 covers us there, 2-0 covers us there. So I'm quite happy with that. All right, let's move on. Chelsea West Ham is the next game we're looking at here. Mark, I'll start with you for this one, but let's take a look at the betting. 1.56, you can back the Blues here. West Ham is 6.6. The draw available of 4.7. West Ham getting a 1-goal start, which means if they lose by 1, you get your money back. It's 2.06, and 2 3/4 is the goal total. Mark, I don't know what to make of Chelsea. It's like, 5 or 6 games in with a negative goal deficit. This isn't the Chelsea side of old under Tuchel. There's just a lot of question marks here. But in terms of a bet, what is offering the best value for you currently?
I think both teams to score at a shade of odds on, really. I think I can't have a huge amount of faith in either defence coming into this match. Thomas Tuchel has rightly criticised his team, gave them the hairdryer treatment after the Leeds loss, and then went again for them after the Southampton game. He said they need to toughen up and show a different mentality, and called out some really soft defending. And it's hard to disagree with those comments. They have been disrupted by injuries and suspensions, but there is a soft centre about them at the minute. And Kovacic isn't 100%, had to come off the bench midweek. Gallagher was suspended. He'll be back. Reece James was ill. He should be back as well. But Kante's out. Loftus-Cheek is now out as well. Koulibaly's still settling in. Thiago Silva isn't getting any younger for quick turnarounds. Fofana's a cracking addition, but he has not played for a few weeks either. So a lot of question marks, and there seems to be a sort of change in style and system defensively, at least with Chelsea at the minute. So I'm quite happy to sort of read into that sort of fragility about them, because I think West Ham, despite not firing on all cylinders so far this season, do have the ability in forward areas to score goals. But again, defensively, have to be questioned, because they started with a back 3 against Villa last week with Keira, Cresswell and Zuma, 2 of which are fullbacks. Johnson was injured, so Soufal came off the bench. They played with a back 4 then. Amisson Palmieri is the other option at left wing back, and Dawson might be out by the time deadline goes. Otherwise, he might be fit available again. But it doesn't exactly stand out to me as a sort of a watertight defence system, or individuals or collectively. So, but the thing with West Ham is, I know they were quite fortunate against Villa last week with the defective goal. They haven't played with the same verve or rhythm for most of the part this season. They do have game changers. They do have inventive players. Lucas Paquetá is a cracking addition who will be a joy to watch in the Premier League. He can do a bit of everything, but they've got more than enough players in forward areas to make a difference. So I just felt they needed to strengthen other areas of the field. It will make a difference, but I just think West Ham right now are looking a little bit weak defensively, but have the ability in forward areas to cause Chelsea problems and make this game quite competitive. So Chelsea have kept 2 clean sheets at home to top half teams since the start of last season. Their only clean sheet this season came against Everton on match day 1, who basically had no forwards or attacking players available for them. So I do think West Ham can breach that defence, but ultimately you would fancy Chelsea to at least get a goal at Stamford Bridge, even though it's not been the most formidable of venues for them over the past 12 months. So yeah, I thought both teams to score at a shade of odds on was a nice price.
Adrian, you're giving West Ham a right good chance here.
I'll give them a chance, yeah, because I think they've had a good week. Okay, it was a bad game against Villa, but they offered up very few chances, did they? They won the game, and then of course I thought they were really unlucky not to beat Spurs. See, I was at Emirates last night, but I've watched the sort of extended highlights, and it looked to me as if they were comfortably creating the better chances and should have scored 2 or 3 really in that second half, really knocking on the door. So I see signs of life about West Ham, and that will buoy them, I would guess, ahead of a visit to a Chelsea team that are in a bit of a pickle. We don't really know what Tuchel's best team is right now. I think no Kante is big for them. We don't know what's going to happen with Reece James. They're not quite the same side when he's missing either, are they? Sterling really is the only one to shout about at the moment. I think he's looked really, really good. It's not a great happy hunting ground for David Moyes. He's never won at Stamford Bridge as a manager, so that's one to take into account. But West Ham have won 3 of the last 6 against Chelsea, albeit I think most of those, if not all of them, have been at the London Stadium. So they won't be intimidated by Chelsea. I think they'll go there and fight fire with fire and look to prey on a Chelsea that are not in the groove. And so, yeah, I just looked at West Ham on the handicap. I think they're being a bit underrated. So, yeah, I was looking at West Ham plus 1.25 goals here, just to sort of, get the draw or a narrow defeat onside. Only a comfortable Chelsea win makes us lose money, and I think that's quite appealing. I agree with pretty much everything Mark said, but West Ham have still only scored 2 goals this season. That's the worry. Even and they're up against Chelsea, even though they're not at their best. So it's are we that comfortable or confident that they're going to score at Stamford Bridge? That would be my only question mark. But yeah, I think they can make this competitive.
Are we got confident in Chelsea get 2 or 3 as well? I can't see that at the moment.
No, I think, like I said, they've had a good week. They kept Tottenham at bay at home. Really, I mean, it was an own goal. It was a good counter attack from Spurs to score the goal, but outside of that, it wasn't as if Spurs were creating a glut of chances, and Villa absolutely didn't in the previous game. So I don't think West Ham are offering up that many gifts, even though you look at their rear guard and think, well, it's not first class. They've actually been quite solid in the last 7 days.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I like that bet. West Ham plus 1.25. That appears site plus 1.0/1.5. So like AC said, even if West Ham lose by a goal, you make 50% of your stake in it. Miguel, talk to me about Tuchel for a second before I get your selection here. There's new ownership, obviously, at Chelsea. Is there potential that this gets, potentially dicey? Because we do know in the previous 10 years at PSG and Dortmund, cranky Tuchel comes out and he gets in his head and he kind of pisses people off around the building and stuff. And like I said, new owners, this could go very badly, very quickly if results don't improve.
Well, I mean, certainly on a very basic level, beyond results, and I think this feeds into results, I would have some concerns about some of his, team decisions. And I think that feeds in from some of what I've been hearing about even transfer decisions, where one of the reasons that I suppose Chelsea have kind of their summer has been expensive and somewhat erratic, in which they've kind of jumped around to different targets. Now, people are putting that at the new ownership. From what I've heard, though, it's as much to do that Tuchel's plan has been kind of evolving over the summer. Now, evolving is a euphemism for basically sometimes changing week to week, which can make things a little bit difficult. It's one reason I don't think he's under pressure just yet. I mean, obviously the great unknown here is that it's not Abramovich anymore. But the other side of that is the new owners have given Tuchel more control and more influence than Abramovich ever gave any manager, even Mourinho at his absolute peak or after he won one of the titles. So that's one reason I don't think he's under immediate pressure, even if things get bad. I think there'll be a bit of grace, a bit of time going on. But again, it's about results, and this is why, I mean, just coming to my selection. It's why I would repeat the logic, I suppose not to bore people, but repeat the logic of last week, which is that Tuchel's response to an erratic result is always to lock it up. Now, I think that would have worked last week had it not been for a very rash decision from effectively a new player in Conor Gallagher. Even obviously he's a long-time Chelsea player, but because his first spell in the first team, that very rash decision for that I couldn't believe the sight of it, actually. That challenge that got him sent off against Leicester. I think they would have kept a clean sheet in this game. Given that, married to West Ham's I suppose bluntness in attack, you might say, I think it'll be low scoring. I think Chelsea will keep a clean sheet, and they will nick a win. I think they'll have enough about them, because Sterling's also finding form as well.
I got to admit, last weekend with your bet with the Chelsea clean sheet, even when they went down to 10, I actually thought that might suit them in a kind of a way, you know. So yeah, I wasn't exactly kind of throwing the toys out of the pram. I was like, okay, we could be still good here, but
I think last week it ended up being a little bit of complacency that cost them more than that. Yeah. They got the big comfortable in 2-0.
Yeah. All right. Again, look, different directions here, opposing opinions. You're listening now. You're getting the guys' takes. AC, I'm going to side with you again. This is very rare to go 2 times in a row, but I just like the look of the West Ham getting 1.25. I'm just not a believer in this Chelsea team currently in their current guys, and I just think that's a good bet. If Chelsea win by a goal, we still make 50% profit here at 1.78. I'd be quite happy with that one. All right, Merseyside derby, early game on Saturday. We'll take a look at the betting. Everton against Liverpool. 8.6, you can back Everton. Liverpool at 1.44. That's short. 5.2 is the draw. Everton getting 1.25 goals. Start at 2.063 is the total. I'll be honest, I laid Liverpool against Newcastle at 1.33. I just thought that was just ridiculous price, even at Anfield against a well-organised Eddie Howe side. Adrian Clarke, that's short, isn't it? Liverpool.
Too short. What about the price on the draw, though? What about that? 5.2. And I'll tell you now, there's a stat right in front of me in my notes that reads 8 of the last 11 Merseyside derbies at Goodison Park have ended in a draw. I mean, nice. 5.2 is juicy, in my opinion. Everton, obviously, a bit of draw specialist at the moment as well. Last 3 Premier League
What have you made of Everton the last week or two? There seems to be, they're hard to get a read on.
A bit better. Yeah, I mean, they had to sort of hang on a bit, didn't they, against Leeds? But they did show resilience, and they're actually creating quite a lot of chances at the moment, Everton. You look at I think in open play, they're ranked 7th for the most shots. Most of the big guns are ahead of them. So it's not as if Everton aren't creating things. They're not getting blown away either at the back. So I see signs of improvement. I still think they're a very mediocre team, but it's not a car crash at the moment for Everton. And I don't think they'll go into this one fearing Liverpool as much as they might have done in the past. I mean, you've also got to consider their record at home last year against the best teams. They beat 3 of the top 6 at home. They drew 1 of the other ones. They lost 1-0 at home to City. And it was only actually Liverpool that won handsomely at Goodison. So these are the type of games that they can be competitive in. Let's be honest, Liverpool, even though they won the previous game 9-0, there are concerns there, aren't there? Gomez doesn't look quite right. Alexander Arnold's not in great defensive form. The midfield is bereft of its usual sort of dominance. Newcastle were good for long periods of that game and bossed it. So I think, I can't really go with Liverpool. I can't, even though I think they'll probably win the game. I can't be that sure of it. I think this could easily be a draw. So yeah, again, I was looking at the handicap. I was going with the underdog on the handicap. You can get Everton plus 1.5 goals at 1.82. So if you think that they can draw or only lose by 1, you're in the money. So yeah, that's my view. But it's as much a sort of my dubiousness about Liverpool at the moment that lures me that way.
Yeah, because Mark O'Haire, there was times of that game with Liverpool last night that it just did not look great. But you look on the flip side of it too, that late goal with a team that is struggling, grinding out wins, that's not a bad sign either, is it?
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool, they're under serious pressure to sort of continue to churn out results after the sloppy start that they've made. And I think there has been relative progress. They've underperformed absolutely in some of those matches, Fulham, Man United in particular. But I think from other occasions, they've probably not been quite as clinical as they have been in previous campaigns. They've taken an awful amount of shots, racked up a high XG from a lot of good positions and just not finished their opportunities. Whereas it all came together against Bournemouth. They absolutely scored with almost every effort they had on target. And I think they will be stronger this weekend. I know Henderson's probably going to be missing after his injury in midweek, but you've got the likes of Curtis Jones, Joel Matip, Diogo Jota, all coming back into the fold. Darwin Núñez is available again after suspension. So suddenly that squad, particularly the bench, which has looked pretty weak in recent weeks, is now going to start looking a lot stronger. And I think from a betting perspective, I don't relish Merseyside derbies as betting heats, particularly at Goodison Park, because they tend to be ugly affairs, and the 4-1 was a bit of an outlier. But everything says to me that Liverpool are a reasonably, or quite a stronger, a much better team than Everton are right now. But as Adrian says, there's been some relatively positive signs about Everton. They've got a decent rest advantage coming into this match, having played on Tuesday. Neil Maupay will be registered now. The new look defence has looked pretty decent. Cody and Tarkowski and Onana performing pretty well at the base of midfield as well. They're not quite as soft a touch as they possibly were previously, but do they have enough in the final third to trouble Liverpool, even in those transitions? Potentially, I guess there's pace in forward areas, but I just think Liverpool probably getting a bit more criticism than they probably deserve, considering the performances they put in. If one of those two of those shots they've had in previous matches have gone in, suddenly the pitch is very, very different. So, everything screams to me like this is going to be an ugly watch, but I think Liverpool probably have the ability to come through and pick up points. So I back Liverpool and under 4.5 goals at 1.88, but I'll be honest, it's not a game I'm going to have a big punting attack on, because I never really do. And as Adrian says, there's a big draw bias in this match from previous years.
Yeah, early kickoff as well would kind of scare me with some of these ones. They tend to be low scoring. You're kind of thinking that way as well, Miguel. You fancy Liverpool, but just to scrape through in this one.
Yeah, I think. I think it'll be a lot like actually the game in what was it, April or May, where Frank Lampard will set. I mean, for all their positive signs in attack, just because of the nature of the game it is, Lampard's going to go into this game looking to spoil Liverpool, especially given some of the struggles that Liverpool have had in the last few games, where they've almost kind of, other than the release against Bournemouth, they encountered a lot of frustration, particularly in the first few matches of the season, and obviously up until the last few minutes on Wednesday night against Newcastle. So I think Lampard will be really seeking to get it. Also, it's one of those games where, and it's why I suppose it's been a bit of a standard for the fixture, a bit of a trend. A draw suits Lampard, even though he hasn't won a game yet. This would be seen as a victory. So we will be going out purely to spoil Liverpool here. But on the other side of that, I think the nature of that late winner against Newcastle is a big moment in Liverpool's season. The thing about late goals, it's always one of two things. Either it sums up a team that actually don't work correctly and they're temporarily getting by, which was the case, say, with Mourinho's United or Solskjaer's United, or it's a sign of a team with that greater character, and they need some of these moments to get over temporary dysfunction. And I think with Liverpool, that's the case. I think the psychology of that will aid them here and kind of aid a return to something like the Liverpool we know, because it'll just see confidence run through the team again. And because of that, even if they encounter frustration in the first half here, I think they'll eventually wear Everton down, which is why I'm going for maybe a low-scoring Liverpool win.
Yeah, your selection is a 7-2 shot, 4.5 Liverpool to win it under 2.5 goals, but I'm going to just be a bit more conservative, and I'm going to take Mark's Liverpool and under 4.5, just in case they hit their straps in an offensive sense. Before we get to EFL European selections, let's take a quick recap of what we have for the marquee Premier League games this weekend. Under 2.5 in the United Arsenal game at 2.12. City to win and BTTS no, which also means City to win on a clean sheet at 2.56. West Ham plus 1.25 at 1.78, and we just covered it there. Liverpool to win and under 4.5 goals at 1.88. All of those selections will be found at Matchbook Insights. So just put it into Google or your Bing or whatever else, or insights.matchbook.com if you want to just throw in the URL. They'll be recapped there from Thursday afternoon. Adrian Clarke, a couple of League One BTTS selections. Rattle through them for me.
Yeah, I'll do it quickly. Yeah, Cambridge against Lincoln. I mean, they were involved in a 4-3 game last time out at the Abbey against Burton. Yeah, pretty lively. They're very good going forward, Cambridge United, this season. Sam Smith's on fire. Ironside, his strike partner, is a really good player at that level. And they're playing a Lincoln team that have been scoring goals and not keeping clean sheets either. They've just had one clean sheet each, Cambridge and Lincoln. 4 out of their 6 respective matches have ended with both teams scoring as well. Cambridge have only found to score once. Lincoln have only found to score twice. Everything to me points towards both teams to score here. It's not the biggest price in the world. Currently 1.8 as you can see on the screen, but I think it's worth a punt. Scully and Hopper for Lincoln are in good form, and Smith and Ironside, as I said, for the use.
Yeah, BTTS no on the flip side in Derby and Plymouth, I see 1.9.
Yeah, it's the other way around, really. Yeah, Plymouth have had 4 clean sheets. Really, really solid, actually, under Schumacher at the start of this season. Derby have had 3 clean sheets as well. Liam Rossini has gone with a sort of safety first policy. There's not a lot of excitement about them, but they're tactically very, very solid. I mean, Derby matches are averaging 1.33 goals per game. It's the lowest in League One by a long, long way. It's not a lot of fun watching them at the moment, but they're picking up points. I think both teams' scores only landed in a third of their respective games as well so far. So 2 out of 6 for Derby, 2 out of 6 for Plymouth. Yeah, so it's just the flip side. I don't feel entirely confident that they'll both score here, and they're absolutely capable of keeping clean sheets at the other end of the pitch. I expect a really tight game between Derby and Plymouth.
Mark O'Haire, you've been kind of hitting the crossbar with a couple of the best bets on the podcast, but on your Matchbook Insights column, which is the European column for those that don't know, you kept it exclusively to League On this season. You've had 8 selections, 6 wins, 1 push, and 1 loss. So you have your eye in on France, and this bet this weekend, Rennes against Lens, both teams to score at 1.78, very much tickles your fancy.
Yeah, Ligue 1's been the top scoring major league in Europe so far this season, 3.46 goals per game. And you can say, well, PSG are boosting that average figure up quite significantly, and maybe so, but actually league-wide, goals have been pretty prevalent, along with red cards, admittedly too. But 77% of games in France's top flight have seen BTTS, so really, really strong figures. And I think we've got 2 teams here who will go at it on Sunday. Rams are coached by Oscar Garcia, who should be well known to EFL fans over here. Spaniard likes his team to be a little bit more fluent than Rams have been in previous incarnations. Traditionally quite a dull team to follow, but they've been pretty decent, and they've seen both teams scoring in all 5 of their first 5 fixtures, despite having a pretty tricky start. So they've been away to Strasbourg and Marseille. They've hosted Lyon midweek. They went to Angers and put on a really decent show, went off as really strong favourites in that game and performed, and they won that game 4-2. So they've been creating plenty at home. They've scored in 15 of the last 21, and they've actually scored in 13 of the last 16 at home to teams outside the top 3 as well, keeping just 6 clean sheets as hosts since the start of last season. So BTTS winning in 57% of those matches, a strong number. And they're playing a Lens team who are just going great guns at the minute. Despite key player sales, they just continue to churn out some really attacking, all-action style football. Tremendously fun to follow. Their matches so far this season have ended 3-2, 4-1, 2-1. There was a 5-2 in midweek as well. There was a 0-0 chucked in there as well, but that was at Ajaccio, a newly promoted team from Corsica, who are very defensively minded. So I wouldn't read too much into that. Look at the other 4 games. That's what Lens are all about, really. They've scored in 15 of 21 away games since the start of last season. 3 clean sheets on the road and a 67% hit rate for BTTS too. Look at their XG figures, all very, very strong. They will score at Rams this weekend, and I fancy the hosts to get in on the act as well. So Lons, rightful favourites, but I fancy both teams to score. It's won, I think, in 9 of 10 collective games so far this season.
I'm muting myself. They're full. That's on Matchbook Insights, and you've also got another selection there. We won't reveal what that is, but head along to Matchbook Insights, and you'll see that. Miguel Delaney, Saturday evening, one of my favourite cities in the world, San Sebastian, Real Sociedad, and Atletico draw. What's the angle here? Atletico slight favourites, but I'm getting a sense that you think there's not going to be much in this at all in terms of goals.
Yeah. Neither side have actually drawn this season, so maybe it's a slight risk there. The other side of that is they're due one. Maybe this maybe this sort of comes from my own actually fascination with Atletico at the moment. Not to watch, because I think there's almost a contradiction to them. They're a side that in 60 to 70% of their games are absolutely appalling to watch, and yet that can make them intriguing, and especially when they're playing a better footballing team. But because they've had a bit of difficulty this season, and they've been bailed out even by the kind of the Griezmann impact the other night. I think there's a bit of anxiety to them. It's why I think in games like this against awkward away sides, we're going to see Simeone double down on even his approach. And I think Real Sociedad are just dangerous enough to give them enough trouble. It's why, this is one of those I just have a good feeling about a draw, I have to say.
All right, 3.25. It's 94 in fractional terms. All right, like the angle. Before we get to best bets, want to just give a very quick point of reference that these trio, will be back for the Champions League podcast on Monday at 1:30, which will be live across Matchbook social channels. It will be out as a podcast from 3 p.m. onwards. And again, Matchbook Insights. You'll find the guys' selections. Our producer, Daniel Hussey, will be hosting it this season just to mix things up, get a different face there. But there's some cracking games next week. Really looking forward to that. All right, best bets time. Mark O'Haire, we head to Italy for your one. We looked at Napoli in the off-season. Mertens, Insigne, Koulibaly all out the door. A lot of worry there. But they've started really well, and in typical Luciano Spalletti style, scoring goals for fun. And you fancy them to go over in the game against Napoli, 2.75.
Yeah, a super Saturday in Serie A lined up. You got Fiorentina against Juventus in the grudge game, then followed by the Milan derby, and then Lazio Napoli to round things off. It's just three really attractive games. I'm expecting this game to be full of goals, entertainment, and drama. Napoli have had the Indian sign over Lazio in recent seasons, a 4-0 and a 2-1 last year. Bookies fancy them to do a job on Lazio again. I feared for them in the summer after letting a lot of their mainstays depart, but they've recruited really well, particularly in forward areas, and they've been tremendously fun to watch so far this season. I think they've got the firepower to match any team in Serie A this season. Smashed up Monza and Verona early on. Were involved in a really interesting 0-0 with Fiorentina, where the game was anything but a goalless game, and hosted Lecce midweek and created plenty. Probably didn't get the result their performance warranted, but they did look open defensively though, and I think in transitions they can be caught out. And Lazio do their best work in Rome, 2-1 winners against Bologna, more convincing than the score suggested, and then turned it around against Inter last week to win a real humdinger. Started that game quite slowly, grew into the match and dominated the last hour and fully deserved the points, and even had Luis Alberto return from injury off the bench to make an impact too. So their forward line is flourishing. They've got plenty of quality. That's where their main strength is at, and it's the same as Napoli too. So you've got two teams going, great guns going forward, potentially not defensively. Lazio have scored in 19 of the last 21 home games. BTTS has been the right bet in 14 of those. Overs in 16. Overs has copped in 5 of their 6 hosting top 6 teams. Also over 3.5 goals in 9 of the last 21 at home. Just goals, really. And Napoli similarly scored in 19 of 21 away games under Spalletti, with just 2 clean sheets away at top 9 teams last term. So fully expect BTTS and overs to cop here, but over 2 3/4 is a nice price.
Look forward to Napoli and Liverpool next week. You guys will be previewing that. Adrian Clarke, another BTTS selection for you. We go back into the Championship. Swansea and QPR, 1.81.
Yeah, when I looked at this fixture, Swansea against QPR, I just thought these are two sides that want to play attacking football. Russell Martin and Mick Beale. I'm not saying they don't care about the defending, but they are all about what they do in possession and how they can hurt the opposition. QPR were great against Hull. I mean, Mark will know this. They played really, really well. They still didn't keep that clean sheet. They won the game 3-1. They haven't had one yet this season, Queen's Park Rangers. And Swansea have only had one shutout as well. So neither side's been great at the back. Swansea are starting to find their feet going forward. with Joel Pirot, who's a striker that I really like. He's starting to hit a few goals in. Both teams to score has landed in 5 of 7 QPR games. It's landed in 4 of 7 for Swansea, and QPR games in general are averaging a lot of goals. I think 3.14 is the average over the season so far. So I think Swansea need the points. They need a win. They'll go for it. But Queen's Park Rangers at the moment with Chair and Willock and other guys, youngsters coming into the team as well. I think they're always worth at least a goal. The hoops. So both teams to score 1.81.
Good man, Miguel. I know you were torn with the Brentford Leeds, both teams to score one, but I actually selected this one because the Brentford Leeds fell below our 1.7 threshold as 1.68. But you know what? Any game that's under 2.5 with Wolves involved, just give it to me. They go into my under 3.5 every weekend. By the way,
that's it. Another one to go in. Completely, yeah. And it's Southampton as well, for all the expectations that they might have fallen apart this season. One of them said by me on this podcast. I mean, again, Aston done a very impressive job. They're actually quite hard to get at. So that's, I mean, it says it on the tin, a best bet. Not quite a banker, but I think a very good bet this weekend. Wolves are almost quite frustrating in that regard because they're a good side there until it basically comes to the fundamental of the game, putting the ball in the net.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with that. Sorry, I just couldn't agree more. I think Wolves are such a good team up until they get to the box, and then that's where it falls apart. I'll tell you one player I've really liked watching lately, Bella Kotchap, the centre half for Southampton. You must have been impressed with him. I think he's a real prospect. Is he only 20? He looks a proper centre half in the making there. So keep your eye on him. I think he's going to.
I like Lavia as well. I mean, again, Southampton. I mean, for all they'd kind of fallen out of favour as a model Premier League club, but they still keep unearthing these players. That kind of and actually, it's given the theme of today is how much the Premier League is spending, like 50 million on relatively average players.
That's for sure.
Southampton keep unearthing players for fairly low fees. And as Daniel is putting in the message there as well, don't forget to mention Ireland's Bazunu. Man United could very much do with Bazunu at the moment, but I don't think City will be too impressed with that.
Oh, I really like this bet, and I think Adrian, it was almost one of those bets you were looking at. Geez, why didn't I pick that one out? That was a pretty good one, wasn't it? Yeah. All right, good stuff.
I'll steal it for insights. Yeah.
The worst thing about that one, Miguel, is that this won't be up by half time. I know you're kind of before half time, but you may have to sweat it out a bit more. Be like the rest of us, use them in
change it up.
There you go. Adrian, Miguel, Mark, pleasure as ever. Don't forget the guys will be back Monday. Check out insights.matchbook.com. If you're on YouTube, thumbs up, click the subscribe button. Or if you're on the podcast, please leave us a preferential review if you're enjoying the content. I'll be back next Thursday. You'll see the guys on Monday. But until then, goodbye for now and best of luck with your bets.